What's here?
Good boy. Very good.
All right, you can
When
have a regular
parrots speak
nut.
English and gorillas use sign language, we're naturally moved to reply, engage in a conversation. But do animals really have language?
How many green blocks?
Most wild animals communicate amongst themselves. Breaking their code is not easy. Even with the right dictionary, would we still know what they really mean? Perhaps theirs is nothing more than a language of the senses, simple but effective means of expressing fear, excitement, anger, and of course, danger. Early warning systems are vital tools of survival in the wild, and there are many ways of communicating danger, not all of them audible. In the rainforests of Australia, web spinners live in labyrinths of silk spun from their feet. They work endlessly to repair and extend their fortress and rarely venture out. Predators scratch around for a way in. Green ants, expert at trench warfare, are particularly unwelcome. A web spinner detects a breach of security and trips the alarm by beating a retreat. In the panic to escape, it sends vibrations throughout the network of silk. As the shockwaves travel along this primitive information highway, the others evacuate the main nest. Communication is a lifeline, whatever form it takes. But here, the messenger was not consciously warning the others, merely trying to get out of a tight spot. The bearer of bad news must pay the ultimate price.
He's like boom, boom. It's like pulling like perfectly. It's great.
Dr. Mark Hauser, professor of psychology at Harvard University, is an expert in animal communication.
I would define communication as the exchange of information between two individuals or more, where the communicator is in some sense trying to manipulate the behavior of the receiver.
Few places on Earth resonate with the diverse communication skills of animals more than Africa. In the arid scrub of northern Kenya, one animal is a master of the art of manipulation. Meet the indicator bird, aptly nicknamed the honey guide. It feeds mostly off insects and is especially partial to bees' eggs and larvae, but it needs a helping hand to get at them. The bird looks out for members of the Bertrand tribe and chatters to attract their attention. The tribesmen know the honey guide will lead them to the pot. The bird stops from time to time to let the men catch up. In turn, they must let the bird know they're still on its tail.
Here. Ja. Ja. Hör. Hör. Hallå där. Hallå där.
Once the hive is located, the bird waits patiently at a safe distance while the men get on with the job of confronting a colony of angry bees. True to their side of the bargain, the men leave their guide a generous tip. If the indicator bird has learned to sing for its supper, conscious communication between humans and animals can get far more sophisticated. A language of sorts turns man's best friend into man's best worker. Johnny Wilson is a shepherd on the Scottish borders, responsible for the care and protection of 700 sheep. He couldn't do this without the help of his working dogs. Johnny has 8 border collies. Intelligent, obedient, and tireless, the dogs make ideal drill sergeants to marshal flocks of unruly sheep scattered about the Scottish hills. One good dog is worth a dozen men, as long as Johnny can make himself understood. He uses 6 basic voice commands.
Come by, Rob. Look back.
Look back tells the collie to round up stray sheep.
That'll do, Rob.
That'll do, and the collie must return to his master.
Away to me, Rob.
Come away to me, move from right to left.
Bye, Rob.
Come by, from left to right.
There. Steady on.
Steady on, move more slowly.
Lie down.
And lie down. When the dogs are almost out of earshot, Johnny whistles his commands. The crafty collies seem to be bilingual.
I start with voice commands. Once I have the dog on the commands and they know "Kuwaiti me" and come by, all I do is I'll say "Kuwaiti me, Rob," and then I'll go just as he's going. And I can guarantee you with a border collie, it'll just maybe take 2 days at the most to put them onto that whistle. For some unknown reason, they go into whistles easier as they go into voice commands.
The shepherd keeps in constant touch with his dogs one way or the other. It's a working partnership between man and dog, born out of sound communication.
Lie down. Lie down there.
What about actual language? We all talk to our pets and we often think they understand. Johnny Wilson can tell his dogs where to go and what to do, but he can't tell them what he had for dinner or whether it was tasty. Dr. Hauser says language transcends simple communication.
Language comes in that in some sense it's a form of communication, but it also refers to the kinds of internal computations that the mind has available to it to both refer to things in the world and to take discrete elements like words and combine them into larger meaningful chunks.
Language has the power to reach far back into the past. It uses words and symbols to evoke the present and points to the future. It describes thoughts and emotions, as well as more basic things. The word snake refers to a legless reptile, and fig, a specific fruit. Baboon defines a species of monkey. Simple names, combined into phrases and sentences through grammar and syntax, evoke the wonders of life itself. The baboon shakes the tree to dislodge the snake and eat the figs. So is a baboon capable of this kind of language? Or are the sounds animals make little more than instinctive reactions to fear and pleasure? Language takes on many guises, not just noise or spoken words, but abstract and symbolic forms too, like music, mime, and of course, dance. For centuries, beekeepers have marveled at worker bees dancing on their honeycombs. Scientists believed they were using a symbolic language to tell their co-workers where to find food. If a bee finds food close by, it returns to the hive and performs a pirouette. If the food is further off, the waggle dance is called for, a slow figure of 8 with a bit of a shimmy in the middle. According to popular theory, the angle of the waggle to the sun indicates the direction of the food. The bees leave the hive and follow their compass bearing until they find what they're looking for. Instead of words, this sun dance conveys both distance and direction. But could this really be true? Modern textbooks still support the theory, though scientists now interpret the choreography in a dramatic new light. Dr. Adrian Wenner of the University of California, Santa Barbara, comes from a family of beekeepers. He started out believing in the symbolic language of bees.
My whole doctoral dissertation was based on the fact of bee language, because no one had any reason to question it. I didn't realize that this was a hypothesis generated and that had never really been tested properly.
Dr. Wenner does not deny that bees dance, but his experiments put an entirely new spin on their performance. He believes that the dance has more to do with transferring odor than communicating through any kind of abstract language. Place an odorless but sweet solution near the hives, and few bees take to it. Use the same solution, this time with a cotton bud dipped in clove oil, and the bees pick up the scent. The first bees return to the hive carrying minute traces of clove. Within minutes, others hone in on the dish. Half an hour later, and the bees swarm.
Now, if you watch the bees that are paying attention to a dancing bee, they're sideways to it. And this, of course, means that as the bee waggles along, it can be knocking odor molecules onto the antennae of the receiving bee.
The scientific world is now coming round to Dr. Wenner's view that the bee's dance may not be any kind of language at all.
There's something called Occam's razor, or oftentimes known as Morgan's canon, where when you have two possible explanations for behavior, that you should take the simplest one. Bees have brains the size of a grass seed. It was not meant for thinking.
You wouldn't tar a monkey with the same brush. Vervet monkeys are social animals, and with their bigger brains, it would seem natural for them to develop linguistic skills, at least to protect each other. Vervets live in tight family units. About the size of a small dog, they're coveted by any number of predators. Most animals use an all-purpose danger call to warn against immediate threats. But anything as vague as help or run would be disastrous for the vervets. Because they are attacked by different predators, they need to know what the threat is in order to escape it. When they see a snake, the vervets sound the alarm and keep a watchful eye out for the intruder. Now listen to this. The leopard signal triggers a frantic dash for the thinnest branches in the canopy, where the leopard has no chance. That's the vervet alarm call for eagle. This time, the monkeys seek thick protective vegetation to stay hidden until the coast is clear once again. By having 3 different alarm calls, the vervet's self-preservation system is much more efficient. So are these monkey words for snake, leopard, and eagle? In the late 1970s, a group of scientists decided they were. It was a bombshell that changed the way we think about animals, though some scientists, like Dr. Hauser, took it all with a pinch of salt.
That was the first indication that animals may have something that's kind of like a word. But if you really look in detail at the system, it looks to be very, very different from the human system of words. If the animal system were truly like the human system, there's no reason why they would stop at describing a small number of things in their environment. It should be explosive. Once you have the notion of reference, you can refer to things with an arbitrary relationship between sound and meaning, you're done.
Vervet monkeys remain largely tongue-tied compared to humans, though their voices are vital for survival.
The second and fundamental difference is that when animals communicate, they seem to be communicating about the here and now. I see a leopard, I give a leopard alarm call.
The next step to develop real speech would be a giant leap for the animal kingdom and a giant leap of faith for scientists. In the 1950s, Keith and Catherine Hayes started a language experiment with a chimpanzee called Vicky. Vicky grew up with the Hayes' own children, and the speaking program began. Progress was slow. After 4 years, all Vicky could manage was mama, papa, cup, and up. The experiment disappointed those who had hoped for a breakthrough, and it coincided with another major discovery. Apes may look and act like us, but because of the position of their larynx, they're physically incapable of real speech.
Now, who am I? Papa? Papa? Can you say what this is?
Apes and humans are poles apart. Dr. Hauser is fascinated by the different evolutionary paths animals and humans have taken.
The, to me, extraordinary thing about thinking about the evolution of the mind is that animals were kind of humming along, thinking rich thoughts, but couldn't talk about them.
The evolutionary fault line between man and ape is speech.
I can have a relationship with somebody and go to somebody who's never seen or heard anything about it and tell them absolutely in detail what I've just done. That is an incredible capacity. Now, it doesn't mean that other animals are not interesting. It just means that that's something that we do and other animals don't seem to be able to do.
If speech is unique to humans, does that mean we also have a monopoly on language? Dr. Penny Patterson has spent years trying to prove animals do have linguistic skills, even though they don't have the vocal apparatus to speak. Her experiment with Coco began in 1972. She knew Coco would never talk, so she used American Sign Language. Over the years, Coco grew, and so did her vocabulary. She now knows 1,000 signs and understands 2,000 spoken words. Coco became a star. Penny's relationship with Coco grew so close that she dropped any pretense at scientific objectivity. Her work is controversial, and many scientists and linguists believe she gives Coco far too much credit. Who wouldn't? Coco takes her education very seriously. Problem is, because primates look like us, can we really expect them to be like us?
A nice move I like to make is to say, take any given behavior you see in an animal that looks like us and just substitute something that doesn't look like us, like a slug or a chicken or a bat, and now imagine running the same kind of explanation on that particular species. If you find you can do it as readily, fine. But I think the cautionary note is that it's too easy to fall into an interpretation of an animal's behavior just because it looks like us.
So is the ape language camp deluding itself?
You were brave, and you were really brave.
Dr. Sally Boysen runs a kind of school for primates at the Ohio State University Chimpanzee Center. She's taken chimps a step further and teaches them a wide range of cognitive skills. Her team talks to the chimps in English, and they understand a lot more than Scottish Border Collies. The latest exercise is word recognition.
You looking? Find orange. Orange. Good boy. Good job.
Bobby is tested on 9 different foods. The researcher, Stephanie, asks him to match an item with a word on screen. The words appear randomly, so Bobby must make the correct choice.
All right.
Bobby deserves more than congratulations.
Good job. Pop.
Great.
Bob, where's Pop?
Great.
Uh-oh. Bobby, where's Pop?
We're still in the early stages of looking at the chimp's ability to associate English words with foods and the names of other chimpanzees, etc. We're working with whole word recognition right now, but we will return to the individual alphabetic characters so the animals construct the word also.
Banana. Where's banana? Banana.
Bobby scores consistently high marks, which is just as well, since his appetite for M&Ms is insatiable. He really seems to be thinking about a problem, not just guessing.
Good job, Bobby. Good boy. Come on, peekaboo.
The Chimpanzee Center teaches more than just reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Emma, look.
Dr. Boysen's team wants to find out how well chimpanzees communicate vocally with each other. How much information do they really exchange?
We are currently interested in natural chimpanzee vocalizations as well. So we've been exploring just one category of vocalizations, and those are food barks.
In the wild, as well as in captivity, chimps produce sounds when they see food. Are these food barks real words, or just emotional responses? At the Chimpanzee Center, the chimps react to their likes and dislikes. Their food barks are recorded.
Good girl. Good girl. Sheba, can you sit down, not on your chair? Stay right there. Good girl.
Back in the classroom, another chimp listens to the recordings before identifying the barks.
Good, Sheba. Peanuts. Good job, Sheba.
We played a very simple game with the chimps. We played the recorded vocalization, say a vocalization that was collected when they saw lettuce, not a big favorite. And then 4 pictures appeared, and they were to pick the picture that was possibly being referred to by the vocalization. And we were quite surprised when they actually were able to specify. That is, not only could they pick good foods, they could pick the specific good food.
To the human ear, food barks sound pretty much the same.
Okay. Okay.
Dr. Boysen's next challenge is to crack the chimp's code.
So now what we're going to try to do over the next several years is try to tease apart what part of that call really contributed to the decision making. That is, how did they make a decision between M&Ms and grapes when many of the acoustic features were very similar? High frequency, rapid periodicity, rapid temporal features, and very different from not so good foods where the frequencies are lower and the time course is very different, as opposed to which are very different.
This is exciting new scientific territory.
Sorry. You ready to pay attention?
It could lead to understanding far more about the evolutionary divide between apes and humans.
Good, Sheba. Good girl.
So we think it's a really interesting new direction to explore to see what kinds of possible vocal behaviors might exist in the chimpanzee that could have been shared by a common ancestor. And when the two species diverged, the chimpanzee line and the human line, from this common ancestor, what parts of that neurological organization did they maintain, but the outcome was very different? That is, we went on to speech, they went on to their more finite call structure.
It helps that chimps are noisy, talkative creatures with at least a semblance of speech. Other highly social animals seem to communicate in absolute silence. Elephants wander all day in search of food and water. They can consume 250 kilos of food and 160 liters of water every day. Herds need to keep a distance from one another, so there's enough to go around. So how do they coordinate their movements over such vast areas, especially when resources are scarce at the end of the dry season? Dr. Caitlin O'Connell-Rodwell, a biologist from Stanford University, has found a way into the mysterious sensory world of elephants.
Welcome to Zoo Lights, the new high voltage.
Elephants inhabit an acoustic environment of their own. Where dogs and whales are attuned to high frequencies, elephants find themselves at the bottom of the scale. They pick up low frequency or infrasonic sounds well beyond human range.
Infrasound in elephants was really discovered in the mid-'80s by Katie Payne. She was in a zoo and there were some Asian elephants and she kind of felt this fluttering and realized that they were actually vocalizing, and they got some low-frequency equipment and recorded these infrasonic calls.
Elephants may rely on more than their trademark ears for information around them, especially over long distances. Low-frequency sounds travel, at best, 10 kilometers through the air. The same sounds or vibrations travel much further through the surface layer of the ground. So are these elephant boots made for talking as well as walking? Elephant feet take quite a pounding and are extremely sensitive. These are more like deep ruts than scars. It takes zookeepers more than just a bit of spit and polish to keep elephant feet healthy. A shoeshine boy's nightmare. At the Oakland Zoo near San Francisco, Dr. O'Connell-Rodwell and her team prepare to test an elephant called Donna to see how receptive her feet are to sound. They're going to simulate seismic activity through the ground.
It's pretty good.
That's 10.
So the idea here with Donna is to, she's going to be standing on a force platform we're delivering vibrations of 5 hertz 5 hertz, 10, 15, 20 hertz, and then lowering the amplitude of that signal every time to try and understand what is the minimum amount of vibration she can detect.
Donna is a female African elephant. At first, she's a bit over-enthusiastic, but she soon settles in. Every time she feels a vibration through her feet, she must touch the red disc.
The reason we're doing these studies in the Oakland Zoo is to understand exactly how sensitive the elephants are to vibrations of any kind. And we're also planning, once we get this down in this captive environment, to do it in a somewhat semi-captive environment in either Africa or Asia, where the elephants are more accustomed to paying attention to the environment with not so much noise. She just did that on her own, didn't she?
She's done several on her own.
That's great. After rewatching all those...
If elephants sense vibrations through the ground, especially those of faraway herds, what chance is there that they have their very own language?
In thinking of animal language and elephant communication, it's a very beautiful thing to see elephants up close communicating. They're very tactile animals and very visual animals. They're very aware, their eyes light up and they shake their head at each other. So there's a lot going on in close quarters that is most certainly a language for them.
If only animals could speak our own language. Parrots do, often with amusing results.
Go up here, I'll get you some real treats. Good boy.
But parroting is the dubious art of imitation without understanding what's being said. Empty words.
You're right. Well, I know I'm right.
Dr. Irene Pepperberg, a professor of psychology at Brandeis University outside Boston, has spent much of her career teaching an African grey parrot called Alex to really understand what he says.
Alex was a bird I bought at a pet store. I tell people not to do that, but I needed a bird who was not special in any way. I had to show that I could take a so-called off-the-shelf bird and do all these experiments and show what they could do.
Come on, what's different? What's different?
Color.
Good birdie.
Good birdie.
That's right. You want to know?
Good birdie indeed.
Good boy.
But is Alex, the pet store parrot, just paying,
get a much
well,
better nut
beak service to intelligence?
You're
Or does his
very
bird
good.
brain
You're
do
waking
more
up a
than
little.
just repeat exercises?
Change shapes. We'll change shapes. Okay. All right, what shape? What
Here,
shape?
a new recruit called Griffin learns the relationship between sound and meaning by observing another human student.
What shape? You're so close. You're so close. What shape?
6 corner.
6 corner, you're right.
I got 6 corner wood. I want a nut.
There you go. Here's
I got
nut.
a nut.
Mm.
Oh, good.
Yummy
6
nuts.
corner wood.
Yeah, come on,
Okay,
Griffin.
Griffin. Look.
Now it's Griffin's turn.
What shape, sweetie? What shape? What shape?
Corner. That's
Yes.
right.
How many corners? You're right. Say the whole thing. How many corners?
That's right.
6.
Corner.
Good boy. Yo, you're so good.
Griffin is still a beginner.
But I want you to say the whole thing.
But smart Alex is an old hand.
6 corners.
He's been
Can we
doing
say it
this
all
for
together?
26
What
years.
shape?
Corner.
Yeah. How many corners? Say the whole thing. What shape?
Corner.
Yes, Alex,
right,
you're
Alex.
right. Alex, you're a good birdie. Yes.
Alex can name about 100 objects and answer questions on size,
How many orange
shape,
blocks?
colour and matter.
How many
But
green
that's
block?
kids' play.
How many green block? How many green block? Come on, how many green block? No green block. How many green block? Come on, how many green block?
That's
Good
right.
boy.
There's 4 green blocks. Very good.
It's a struggle, but
Yeah,
Alex
that's right.
gets
Good
there in
green
the
block.
end,
How many?
processing a pretty large bite
Tell
of
me how many green
information.
block and we can finish this task, okay? How many green block? What warbirds do is not pure counting. I call it recognition of numbers. What he does is
not a simple, what's called subitizing, a perceptual recognition. That's like when you see dice or dominoes and you know there's 12 things, but you don't count them. We give them complicated tasks where we throw colors, red and blue balls and blocks on a tray, and we ask him how many blue block. And he couldn't do that by a perceptual mechanism because there's a big melange of stuff. And we gave this task to a 4-year-old child. The 4-year-old child had trouble with it. So he's got some sense of number. And we have to work at it to see if it's true counting.
He's just trying to sabotage you.
Okay, let's do one more.
Alex is not just a pretty boy.
Can you tell me how many orange wool we have? How many orange wool? How many orange wool?
Good
That's
boy.
Right. Good bird. Want to
Okay,
know?
here you go.
What color bigger? Orange. That's right.
Good
Orange
birdie.
is bigger. Orange is bigger.
Good boy.
That's right.
Alex's flair with words and numbers is impressive, and yet something tells Dr. Hauser that he might just be pulling the wool over our eyes.
Corner.
The work that Irene Pepperberg has done with Alex shows that Alex can learn symbols for numbers. In Alex's case, and unlike the chimpanzees, actually words. So Alex knows the words for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Just like the work on the chimpanzees, however, Alex goes no further than that, never understands this is a list, that the list can be built by a successor function that you just keep adding 1. For each step, it took Alex as long to learn what 1 means, 2, and so forth. So Alex's capacities are very much like the chimpanzees.
Yeah, you're starting.
The homework now covers the basic phonetic units of words like R,
That's
E,
right.
and
Good
Ch.
birdie.
What sound gray? That's right.
Alex left the
Good
pet shop to
birdie.
embark on a long, fascinating journey. But is he any closer to the holy grail of real language?
What Alex has and the other birds have is a complex form of communication. We've trained them to use certain sounds of English speech. It's not language the way you and I would speak language.
What shape? That's right. How many?
As we train them, we learn that it's more and more complicated. Now, no matter how far we go, still, Alex will not be able to give a lecture for me.
What's different?
So there's going to be elements of human language that they can master. At some point, you can come into the lab and you have a conversation with Alex. But it's not the same conversation you have with me. It's a conversation you may have with a 3-year-old child. So it's all a matter of degree.
At Marineland in the south of France, killer whales must learn the ground rules of grammar before they can perform. 7 meters long and weighing about 5 tons, training them requires gentle persuasion. They're rewarded for their achievements with food and affection. Trainers use a complex system of sign language to communicate with the whales. They understand dozens of signs. Killer whales have exceptional vision and are highly intelligent. They respond to the subtlest command. John Kershaw, General Curator at Marineland, knows these whales intimately.
There are as many signs possible as a trainer has imagination. Really, these guys can take on board everything we can throw at them, and they take it all in. And there seems to be no end to their memory. We teach a language to these animals. We teach them signs. These signs correspond with different behaviors that we require, and we can even push things a little bit further in putting together these different signs to form what you could call a phrase, I suppose, if you wanted to, but in actual fact for the animal is just a list of requests which he can understand as one behavior, and he can perform all these things at once, bringing out all the different things that we've asked for, which is pretty difficult to understand.
Their ability to understand multiple commands like swim over there on your back spitting puts killer whales at the top of the animal language class. Most animals, including chimpanzees, have difficulty executing more than one command at a time. Whales respond to a basic sign language of complex phrases. What about syntax? Is this too much of a leap for the killer whale? In English, David loves Jane does not always mean Jane loves David. The words are the same, but not the order. Woe betide the suitor who conveys the wrong meaning. To test virtual syntax on a killer whale, the trainers first use two familiar commands, go and spit. The commands are unexpectedly reversed, spit and go. It's a hesitant performance, but the penny seems to have dropped. The novelty of syntax, meaning through word order, enters the whale's mighty faculties for the very first time.
We tried here to change the word order in one of the phrases we use very regularly and see if it influenced the animal's behavior. And simply by not reinforcing what he was doing, we were able to push him to guess his way into what we wanted. It took about an hour for us to teach the animal that there was a difference between go over there and spit and go over there. And the animal finished tentatively by understanding what we meant. It was sort of a little spit and then a go over there with a sort of a look towards us going, is that really what you wanted? It's not what I normally do. But it can be done very easily. We can change word order and it can have an effect on the animals.
So phrases and word order, which are so important to human language, are easily taken on board by killer whales. Surprisingly difficult too for animals is pointing. Even young children struggle with this.
Most animals, if you put your arm out like that with your finger extended, they'll look at the end of your finger and wonder what they're supposed to do with it. Whereas a killer whale will understand that that movement means over there. So over there exists in killer whale language. We have to teach it. But it's not that difficult to teach. We can teach them by the use of a target and by the use of a second person who intervenes at that moment, that it is interesting at the moment that I do that to go over and see what's going on over there.
Killer whales seem to take everything in their stride. But even these megastars at times forget their lines. And when that happens, they all lose the plot. Is one whale deliberately confusing the others?
We're working with two animals at the same time, and both animals in front of one trainer. One trainer will ask the animals to do something, and they'll both go off and do it wrong, or they'll both go off and do it right. What happens is a little bit like walking down the street. Two people walk down the street, and you come to a fork in the street like that, and one person will go, come on, down here. And they'll go down one side or the other, and the other person will very happily follow. Be it right or be it wrong, he will happily follow. And it's no more complicated than that, really.
The killer whales of Marineland seem ready to follow their trainers to ever greater heights. If they ultimately fall short of learning a full language, it may not be for lack of ability.
I'm sure they are totally capable of understanding a language. They are capable of taking on board the information necessary to be able to use a language, probably, but we would have to teach them. Because for them to have a very complex language, they would have to have a need for a complex language. And in fact, their sense of observation is sufficient. They don't need a language. So if you ask me, does a killer whale in the wild have a language, I would say not particularly a developed language, no.
Mastering complex sign language in captivity is a far cry from the whale's natural vocalizations in the wild. So how well do they communicate with man in their own environment? Jim Nolman is a musician who's been coming to Vancouver Island for the past 20 years to perform. With a population of just 4 people, Telegraph Cove on the east side of the island is hardly a choice venue for his concerts. But a few miles out to sea, Jim has a larger audience waiting.
Looks like they're coming right towards the boat, Bob.
It's time to rig up the stage.
Take my trusty green cord. Plug in the underwater speaker. Underwater speaker walks off the end of the dock. This is a hydrophone, and it's basically an underwater microphone. Here it goes.
Everything is now set for an underwater jam session. The other members of the band shadow the boat. By jamming with killer whales in the wild, Jim hopes to unravel something of their language.
So now they're on to us. You can hear the echolocating, very focused on the boat. Yeah, now they're starting to vocalize, but they're not in pitch yet. An orca's signature whistle is kind of like a little guitar riff. It's a riff. It's a little hook, a musical hook. And when they establish that and sound that, I like to bring it up a half a tone if I can lock onto it, and to see if they'll come with me. Because if they come, now they're really in my ears. Okay, I'm going to play.
The underwater symphony drowns Jim out. The next day, Jim heads for Johnson Strait. It's a popular spot with whale watchers.
So this song is called The Boat Noise Blues. I don't know what else to name it. So much boat noise in this area. So the trick is to play when they're not vocalizing, and then stop before they vocalize, and not play anything when they're vocalizing. So then you get the sense of a dialogue going on. I believe that music is a language, and I believe that coming out here and doing that is running a language experiment. And it's not science, but I think that you don't need to be a scientist to do language. One of the things I see missing in a lot of the language studies, and the difference between maybe an artist and a scientist, is that I'm not trying to solve mystery. I'm there to celebrate it. And in a way, it's rather than trying to figure out if whales have language, I already know they have a language, and I'm there to enhance that and kind of bring that to human culture, and to figure out some very tricky kinds of media to do that.
Jim's approach to language is not scientific, but Dr. Hauser agrees that even scientists don't have all the answers.
I am very open to the possibility that we've just missed the boat on interpretation. I mean, I think, at some level we're stupid as scientists. We don't have a good way into understand what these calls mean, and we've had extremely primitive methods. So, yes, the jury's out about whether there might be other systems that have the power of language for expression, but it seems to me that after 100 years of work now, I think the reasonable conclusion is that many animals have a much richer conceptual life than they have the capacity to talk about that inner life. And that poses a really tremendous paradox. The animals are thinking rich thoughts, but don't have the vehicles to express them.
Theirs is a world that remains largely closed to us. Whatever linguistic abilities animals do possess, nobody has found an animal language as rich as ours.
How many green blocks? How many green blocks?
Where's orange? Orange.
Great.
Oh, there it is.
How many green blocks?
I'm not helping you.
Come on.
You're cheating.
How many green blocks? Green block. No. All right. Let's do something else for a little bit, okay?
Find orange.
Orange.
Good job. Very good.